Hi everybody, I'm Fritz.
I'm Kelsey.
And we're here to give you yoga circuit number 4 to do on your own through Fritz program workouts or through Kelsey's YouTube page. You can do them whenever you want. This one's going to hopefully take about 10 minutes. If you feel like you need more, feel free to pause the video to get a few more breaths in timed at your own pace and then start it again when you want to continue on. Hope you enjoy.
Cool. Let's get started. Okay. So we're going to start in what I call a child's pose cat-cow. So Fritz, you want to get in child's pose facing this way?
Sure. Okay.
So with child's pose, the way that you set yourself up is your knees can go as wide as you'd like. The wider, the better, right? So we're really opening up the hips, just a little added bonus. He's kind of wiggling down, getting situated into child's pose. Child's pose is this right here, reaching your fingertips out. This is a great resting point. You can do this in the middle of your lift.
All day.
Like, all day. Yeah, you can do this all day long. But it's just a really nice place to have your hips open, lengthen out your spine, and just kind of ground down. But from here, he's just going to walk his hands back about a foot in front of his knees, keeping that spine nice and long, right? This is a version of a cat-cow. So what he's going to do is inhale, pull his chest through, really kind of dragging his wrist towards his knees.
Oh yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, and exhale, you're going to press back and around. Notice this nice curve in his spine as he presses away, pressing away from the knees, right? So inhale pulls you through, drag those wrists towards your knees, arch the back.
Should I be lifting my head too or no? Should I keep my chin
No,
down?
you can move chin to chest as you exhale down, and inhale, you can lengthen out your neck, whatever feels good. But if you do have any pain in your neck, you're just going to keep your head nice and neutral. But if you don't, you can roll your neck around here, lengthen out.
That's great.
Yeah. So let's go one more time so they can see how it's going. Once again, like Fritzy said before, feel free to pause the video and move through this as many times as you feel feels good. Awesome. Perfect. So now what we're gonna do is you can kind of walk your hands out and step into a high plank or move into a high plank just to set yourself up. And then lower down to your belly. Good. So we're keeping the chest nice and flat to the mat. You're gonna open up your hands to 90 degrees each. So kind of like a football goalpost. You can imagine that on the ground just like this. And my elbow is always gonna line up with my shoulder. So that's what he's doing on the ground right here if that's not very clear. So he's right here. What you're gonna do is plant your left hand, lift your elbow. Perfect. And then all we're doing is lifting our left shoulder away from the mat, okay? So you're gonna move and stack your hips, so left hip stacks on top of right. As you press, you're just getting that leverage, and you're gonna start to feel this in your right shoulder. And then, as you start to get comfortable in this, if you can get comfortable, as Fritzy is moving, you can open up your knee and plant your foot behind you. This is a big hip mobility thing. If you are like, this isn't even happening in my body right now, that's okay, it's normal. But this is something you can work towards. And then if you feel relaxed, you can rest your right ear to the mat. Nice. And just hang here. So he's getting that leverage, pressing the left shoulder open, keeping that right shoulder nice and grounded. And then you're also having a little bit of a spinal twist here as well as the hip opener. So feel free to stay here for as long as you'd like. Pause the video if you want to take some big deep breaths. But as you're breathing, remember to fill up your belly. You're going to inhale for about 6 seconds, and your exhale is going to bring you down to about 7 seconds. You're going to pause on the exhale and pause as you inhale all the way to the top. So you can go on, come back onto your belly, and we're just going to switch sides. Okay, perfect.
Probably about here maybe?
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. So Fritzy's moving. He's going to go onto the other side so you can kind of see what's also happening here. Planting your right hand, lifting that elbow, and then opening up. And one side will always maybe feel more sore than the other. We're just creatures of imbalance, right? So working for balance. And once again, opening that hip just for the added stretch. Once again, we're working front shoulder. You might feel this in your scap a little bit too.
A little bit.
Yeah, depending on how tight you are. Maybe your low back, lumbar, and then obviously your hip if you move into this variation. Big deep breaths. Inhale for 6, exhale for 7 is where you're at right now. And once again, feel free to pause the video on this side. All right, how you feeling, Fritzy?
I feel good.
Okay. All right, so now what we're gonna do is you're gonna move into downward facing dog. So you can just press up, come onto your hands and your knees and then shift back just as he did right there. So pedaling your feet out is something that I like to do always before I kind of dive into my hamstring work, is what we're going to dive into right now. If you weren't excited already.
So excited.
Okay, so this is just allowing you to really dive into the calf, the hamstring, and warm up the legs before you get into anything. All right, so Fritzy, go ahead and take your right leg up.
Next to my, outside my hands?
You're gonna inhale, reach your heel up. Yep, just extend, and then step it through. So step your foot in between your hands, perfect, lower the back knee. So you're starting in a low lunge position. We're gonna do a little breath to movement here, opening up the hamstrings and the hip flexors, front of the hips. So from here, a little tip. Notice if your feet and your right foot and your knee are kind of in line. That's gonna make you feel like you're on a tightrope and you have no balance. So Fritzy, go ahead and bring your foot a little bit wider. This is widening your base, right? So you have more of a foundation if you feel unsteady. Okay, so from here, one thing to notice is our pelvic tilt. So there's two ways to tilt your pelvis, back and then forward, right? So we don't want the back. We don't want this. This is a no-no. We're gonna tuck our tailbone and drive the hips forward. You're gonna feel this all the way down your quad probably already. We haven't even gotten into anything.
Yeah.
So from here, Fritzy's gonna make sure that his knee is stacking above his ankle always, and then you're gonna press your hips forward and you're gonna feel that. But one thing, notice that Fritzy's knee is in front of his ankle right now. That's also a no-no. So Fritzy, go ahead and caterpillar your foot up. Perfect. See, this is where we wanna be. Nice and stacked, the alignment is awesome. And from here, you can relax your hands down by your sides. Nice tall chest, we're squaring off our hips, so our left hip is gonna wanna hug back, we wanna hug it forward. Good, nice. Okay, so from here, we're stretching out that left hip, and then we're gonna move into the hip flex, or the hamstring. So shift back, and he's gonna dorsiflex his foot, so that's just pulling his toes back. And another thing is make sure that your knee is not totally locked out. We wanna keep just a slight micro bend, and that'll dive into the hamstring, rather than the back of the knee, which could cause sciatic pain. So, breath to movement, we're gonna go for it. So your inhale brings you forward, Fritzy. Good, nice. And your exhale, you're gonna straighten out your leg, reach past your toes, or melt down, whichever one kind of suits with your body. And your inhale brings you forward. Notice how his hips are square. His right hip is hugged back, his left hip is hugged forward. Perfect. Melting down, inhale, come forward.
Yeah.
Now, once again, we've said this before, feel free to pause the video here as you move through this. I recommend about 8 on each side. So one round would be a movement forward and a movement back. You'll go 8 times on each side. All right, so to get out of this, you're just gonna plant your hands on the inseam of your right foot, and then tuck your back toe, lift your back knee, and step back to downward facing dog. Pedal your feet out just a little bit. Find that a little bit of warmth maybe in your right side or your left side now. So go ahead and inhale, left leg up. Find that extension, good. Exhale, step it through and lower your back knee. Perfect. So another thing, Fritzy, will you go back to downward dog? I want to show them this. So if you have trouble stepping your foot in between your hands, which is a really challenging thing to do, you can step your foot to the wide side of your hand. So he can step it to the left side of his left hand. There you go. So it's going to bring you out, and then it's going to set up your foundation nice and wide, so you're all set up for the breath to movement.
Do like a tilt angle.
Yeah. Perfect. So when we're getting all set up, we check our hips tucked forward.
Tucked.
Tucked. Good. Is our chest nice and tall?
Tall.
Check. Good. So we drive our hips forward. Perfect. Knee is stacked above the ankle just as it should be.
That's the inhale, right?
Yep. Inhale brings you forward, and your exhale takes you back. Good. Melting the chest down. Inhale brings you forward. And exhale takes you back. So as you're moving through this, when you reach your maximum stretch, like right here, you want to pause for like 1 or 2 seconds. Feel the stretch and then move through. And if either of these feel really great, feel free to stay stagnantly in them for as long as you'd like.
So you can just inhale next to in that position?
Yeah.
Okay. Got that?
Yep. Okay, let's go one more time just to show them. And remember, 8 on this side, 8 on the other. Keep it even, or do more. but no less. Now, to get out of it, notice he brought his hands to the inseam of his foot. He's gonna tuck his back toes, lift his back knee, and then he's gonna step back to downward facing dog and pedal it out just a little bit. Lengthening out his spine, let your head hang. You can kind of shake your head yes or no, roll your neck out. And then we're gonna move into a nice hip stretch here. So go ahead and inhale and reach your right leg up, finding that extension again, good. And then exhale, your right knee towards your right wrist. So you're gonna bring your knee nice and wide. Your shin will come to the mat. Bring your heel in a little bit, good. There we go. And then you're gonna lower your back knee and sink back. Notice how he kind of shifted himself back to really sink into this stretch. So this is half pigeon pose. One thing that I want you guys to look at in your own, and Fritzy, you can do this too, is come back up, extend your hand or your arms. So your knee should never be in line with your hip. I want you to get your knee a little bit wider. Good. So then you're gonna feel this all the way in the back of your hip, kind of like your butt cheek.
I've been doing this wrong for years.
Yeah. So now, and then that makes it so that you don't want to like sink over towards your right. You're gonna keep your hips nice and even and bring yourself over to the left and sink down. So from here, you can come onto your forearms as he is. If you're really hypermobile, you can let your chest come to the mat. And if you can't even get your forearms to the mat, you can go ahead and just keep your arms extended just like that.
This is still a stretch right here.
Still a stretch, and I can guarantee you'll feel it. I promise.
Found my weakness, Kels.
So from here, he's gonna stay here for about a minute, and you're gonna stay here for about a minute. This is super important to breathe here. When we hold tension in our hips, it's like holding our breath, or we clench our top and bottom teeth together. You want to relax your face, let your eyes be soft, let your cheeks be soft, and just kind of melt towards the floor, being super heavy towards the floor, letting gravity take you down, and that'll just naturally open up your hips. Fritzy, let's go ahead and also, if you feel any knee pain, ankle pain, or this is just way too much for you at all.
This side bugs me a little bit. The other side feels good though.
Okay.
So
for Fritzy, this right side is a little bit tough, or doesn't feel too good all the time. So what he's gonna do is flip onto his back. And that posture that we were just in is called half pigeon. And this is gonna be a figure 4. So he's gonna plant his feet like he's going into a glute bridge. And then he's gonna take his right ankle and cross it over his left thigh. Notice how his foot is dorsiflexed again. This is protecting his knee. And then he's gonna weave his hands through the space in between his thighs and grab onto his knee, his shin, or the back of his thigh, whichever works for you. So this is gonna eliminate any knee pain, any ankle pain that you might be feeling in half pigeon, because it is a big stretch. It's a very big stretch. So here you can just lay back and kind of let it do its thing on your back. And then from here, should we go into the other side?
Sure.
Cool. Yeah. And then the breath work is the same here. So inhale for 6, exhale for 7, just finding a pause in between those, and a minute on each side. Okay? So now you can come back to your downward facing dog. Perfect. He's gonna reach his left leg up, find that extension again. Nice. And your exhale brings you either in between your hands. Oops, just kidding. Your knee's gonna go wide, and then he shifts back. Good. Okay, and then a few of the alignment things, right? So your knee is wider than your hip towards the wide side of your mat.
Let's show that.
Yeah.
It's not here, but out there.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that feels better.
And another thing is, if you've seen people do this before, or you've been to a yoga class before, a lot of the time people will tell you to work to get your shin parallel to the mat. That will happen as you stretch in this posture over time. So don't try to bring your foot up parallel, just let it kind of go where it needs. But if you need
bring it up here, because
right,
that's my flexibility.
Right.
So if I want to get more flexible, I get to start where I'm at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Starts where he's at, and then you slowly move. You can kind of work it forward, but don't force it. Last thing you want to do is force it. So once again, hands either are fully extended, you come to your forearms, or you melt your chest down to the floor.
This side's so much better.
Good. So he said this side is so much better. So he was feeling pain in the right side. We came onto our back to that figure 4. This side isn't so bad. So say your right side doesn't feel good and then your left side feels okay. You can stay in half pigeon on this side. It doesn't have to be the same. You're just kind of working with, like I said before, we're creatures of imbalance, and you're working with your imbalances. Whichever stretch you choose to do, either the figure 4 or the half pigeon, you're gonna stay there for a minute. All right?
All right.
All right, so go ahead and extend your arms, tuck your back toe, lift your back knee, and step back to downward facing dog. And then you're gonna lower your knees to the mat. And you're gonna come into child's pose for our last cool down posture. Kind of starting where, or ending where we began. Child's pose. He's reaching his fingertips really far towards in front of him, and then his sit bones are sinking back. I'm gonna press on his low back just to show you the direction that he's kind of going. So I'm pressing him, he's reaching forward, and then his hips are opening. All right, and you can stay here for as long as you'd like until you're cooled down. Make sure that you're taking really nice big deep breaths, and just go for a little relaxing moment after your lift, after your Fritzy lift.
That's right. Thanks, Kels.
No problem.
That was Yoga Flow 4. Stay tuned for more. Thank you, guys. Yeah.